Double standard.
Here's the thing. I have complete respect for the whole Me Too movement. I have 4 daughters and 1 son. And there's a lot of excitement around the idea that women will be heard and be listened to. There is also due process. And the fact that Joe Biden is Joe Biden, there's been statements from his campaign, or not his campaign, but his former employees who ran his offices and the rest, that there was never any record of this. There was never any record. And that nobody ever came forward, or nobody ever came forward to say something about it apart from the principal involved. I am so proud. The happiest day for me this week was to support Joe Biden for President of the United States. He's a person of great integrity, a great concern for the American people. He authored the Violence Against Women Act when he was the chair of the Judiciary Committee in the 90s. He has been an advocate for funding it all along since then. And I believe that he will be a great president of the United States. He is the personification of hope and optimism and authenticity for our country, a person of great values. So I want to remove all doubt in anyone's mind. I have a great comfort level with the situation as I see it, with all the respect in the world for any woman who comes forward, with all the highest regard for Joe Biden. And that's what I have to say about that.
I'll shake you down. I'm taking back my crown, 'cause I'm the best around. And my name, you shout it out. I want to hear it loud. You hang your head in shame. Don't you forget this day.
This is Jonathan Gilliam, and we is back for another show. And man, what a soundbite to start with, right? I got a couple of those that we're going to have in this show, and one of them is following up with yesterday's whole show. Actually, two of these soundbites, I guess, that we're going to have will really follow up with what we were talking about yesterday. And if you didn't get to listen to that show yesterday, make sure that you go listen to it and then share it with people. I thought I was rambling a lot, actually, when I was making it. And then I went back and listened to it, and then I got some great feedback from people. And one of the best reviews that I've gotten in a long time, I'll have to pull this up. It was on Instagram that somebody wrote me. And it meant a lot. These reviews mean a lot to me, and especially when you're sharing it with people. And this one was on Instagram, and it was from Love Judy Designs. She said, the episode is essential. Well, they all are. You slammed it out of the park with this one. I passed it along, and we'll be listening to it a couple more times. So much to digest. You are helping me get things straight in my mind. That's exactly why I do these things. She calls me the great unraveler. Thank you, Judy. And that's my goal. That's why, after being in media, one thing I definitely realized, and I've told this story before, is it's why I named the show The Experts, because there's a need for this. I mean, it was bad back when I was on air with people who have experience, but their egos were just terrible. They would come in and talk about, they're like somebody who was a SEAL talking about, a virus, for instance. You need doctors to talk about that stuff, right? We can analyze the way that you can take a SEAL or anybody else work for the federal government, and you can have them look at the response, and they can pretty much gather that the response has been a disaster long coming because of the way that things are not prepared in the government, believe it or not. And they can talk about that, but when they're talking about, healthcare, for instance, you really do need to have an expert on healthcare talking about that stuff. Somebody from insurance, somebody from the medical industry, or somebody who has not had insurance and had a terrible medical issue. That's who you need to hear from. And so when I started this podcast, that's the reason why I started it. And don't think just because I come on here and I don't have a guest a lot of the times, I go out and talk to these people. And then when I can't have them on, I will. But I don't just make these rash decisions. But a lot of the things that I talk about in the show have to do with things that I am familiar with. Like I just explained, looking at the system and the way it's broken. And that soundbite that you had from Nancy Pelosi, which I want to play it again because I think it is, it's incredible. And when I play this soundbite, what I want you to do is I want you to think about if you could put Kavanaugh in every time she says Biden, put Kavanaugh in that name Kavanaugh. And it should apply across the board, but it never will. That's not the way the left works, which I explained yesterday. But before I do that, I started out with this. See if I can turn this up. I got this little app where I can record my voice on there and change it, but I played this. Let's see here. Is it playing? I turned up the wrong thing. Hold on. Here you go.
Double standard.
Right. The interesting thing about a double standard is it doesn't matter how you change the voice.
Double standard.
It's still a double standard.
Double standard.
It sounded pretty much like the first one.
Double standard. Double standard.
Double standard.
I think you get it, okay? It doesn't matter how you try to make it sound. If it's a double standard and it's out in the open, you're going to see it's a double standard. It doesn't matter if it's Nancy Pelosi saying it or anybody else for that matter. All the people in Hollywood that didn't come out and voice their concerns with the woman that is accusing Joe Biden of not just attempting to do something, which was the accusations against Kavanaugh that he had attempted to do something when he was in high school, right? This has to do with an accusation that Joe Biden, as a senator, inserted his fingers up a woman's skirt and into her, which is rape. That is rape. That's considered sodomy. And so it's these are things that if you or I, okay, I have usually wear jeans, so it's probably not going to be me. But let's say that you're a female and you're in a workplace, right? Let's say I go to a radio station and I'm there, and then 5 years later, somebody comes out and says, "Oh yeah, this guy at the radio station did this to me." I can guarantee you there is going to be a criminal investigation. And people will not want to have anything to do with you because we're treated with as I explained yesterday, we are treated with a different legal system, with a different set of gloves. You know how O.J. Simpson acted like he couldn't put those gloves on, right? That was an act, by the way. Joe Biden wouldn't even be in a courtroom. They wouldn't even have a case. That's how crazy this is. Let's play that soundbite from Nancy Pelosi again. But this time I want you to think, every time she says Joe Biden, I want you to insert the name Kavanaugh and look at how different the reactions are.
Here's the thing. I have complete respect for the whole Me Too movement. I have 4 daughters and 1 son, and there's a lot of excitement around the idea that women will be heard and be listened to. There is also due process.
Okay. Right there.
Double standard.
That didn't really seem to apply when it came to Kavanaugh. When you add that name Kavanaugh in there, right? Absolutely did not apply. There was no due process, and the things that they were saying at that point that all women must be believed. There was no. They have thrown due process out of the room when it comes to anyone that is a male that they don't want to be in office or appointed to a position, and someone comes forward, even somebody as with the lack of credibility as whatever her name was, Blase Ford or whatever her name was that came up against Kavanaugh. I mean, terribly lacking credibility. And I listened to her with an open mind, her testimony, and there was nothing credible about it at all. The fact also that the guy, she was accusing him of doing this when he was a teenager. It wouldn't even stop somebody if they had a sealed record, which a lot of youths do. They wouldn't even know about this stuff anyway if it was a real crime. And it wasn't. There was nothing there. But in this case, it all has to do with due process. So Nancy Pelosi is going to make sure that Joe Biden is not looked at as guilty unless he gets due process. Absolutely.
Double standard.
That's right. All right, let's keep going.
And the fact that Joe Biden is Joe Biden.
Okay, and here she's making the point that, like, Joe Biden is a senator. Joe Biden's famous. He's powerful. That people are going to come at him, and you don't have to really look at those accusations. It's going to happen because he's Joe Biden. Which, I mean, the guy swam naked in front of Secret Service agents, some female. We have videos of him doing inappropriate things to young and older women alike. It's no surprise. There's a lot of weird stuff about Joe Biden, and this comes out to absolutely, of all people, they should be saying, yes, we have to take this seriously. Especially the fact that he's trying to run for president. And he's kooky enough to do these oddball things in front of cameras. That's how power, it just corrupts the mind. That they think they can do these things, and they're well, I mean, basically they are. The reason they think that they're not touchable is because they're not. I think they've proven that. Listening to last night's show, if you don't realize that.
There's been statements from his campaign, or not his campaign, but his former employees who ran his offices and the rest, that there was never any record of this. Oh,
well, then it must not have ever happened. Because goodness knows, especially, so many years ago, that if you said somebody did something, they would say, well, that's the senator. You're not going to, and the other thing was that her mom supposedly called into Larry King saying that the reason she didn't go any further with the complaint was because she respected him. Again, I believe that many people that work around these powerful people are delusional. They're it's like Hollywood. They don't want to lose their position, and they put these people that are over them on a pedestal, acting like these politicians are some kind of superhero and above all, like they're in a different class of human being. Absolutely not. In fact, they're very kin to criminals. They are criminals, but the criminal mindset, which they do have. All right, Nancy.
There was never any record, and that nobody ever came forward, or nobody ever came forward to say something about it apart from the principal involved. I am so proud. The happiest day for me this week was to support Joe Biden for President of the United States. He's a person of great integrity, a great concern for the American people. He authored the Violence Against Women Act when...
That is just, it doesn't matter Look at Ted Bundy. Remember when he was in front of the judge when he got convicted of being a serial killer, and the weirdo judge, I don't know why he said, he says, I would have loved to have seen you on the bench, but you chose to go down a different road in your life, whatever he said, similar to that. I mean, just because somebody has a position or authored something, I mean, look, it's the same thing with, people say, well, Joe's a nice guy. He lives across the street from that playground over there. He would never hurt a fly. The reason Joe lives across from that playground is because he's a pedophile. Oh, well, he's just an old man. He sits out on the park bench and talks to the children all the time. Just a nice old guy. Well, he's a pedophile. Yeah, but he made that whole playground. He donated the money and actually went out there and built it. Doesn't mean he's not a pedophile. Same thing with Biden. Just because and I really don't think he authored anything. I still have not seen any proof that Joe Biden's done a thing since he's been in politics. Probably had an aide do it and then took credit for it. This Nancy Pelosi and this BS and the things that they spit out, it's worse than a bad Saturday Night Live skit. And it's put off as real. That's the crazy thing about this when you listen to it. Let's go on.
He was the chair of the Judiciary Committee in the 90s. He has been an advocate for funding it all along since then. And I believe that he will be a great president of the United States. Mm-hmm. He is the personification of hope and optimism.
Sorry. I got a little choked up there. Hope. What was the other word that she used? He's the personification. He's a, wait, hold on.
I believe that he will be a great president of the United States. Mm-hmm. He is the personification of hope and optimism.
Optimism. He doesn't even know what optimism is. Oh, good gosh.
And authenticity.
Oh, yeah, he's authentic, all right.
A person of great values. So I want to remove all doubt in anyone's mind.
I mean, out of all the statements, that right there is the absolute worst. Great values is somebody who went and threatened another country because his son is a drug addict, and he got him a position, and then he was getting investigated. Hunter Biden was getting investigated for doing other criminal activity, and he threatens not to give money, and then turns around, blames Trump for the same thing, but raises a drug addict kid who marries his dead brother's wife, or not, I don't know if married her, or did he marry her, or he's dating her. He's definitely having sex with her. And the whole family is unethical. The very things that he does in public are unethical. The way he lies constantly, unethical. And the fact like him and all these other politicians have been in office for so long and this country is in such bad shape. How could you ever think that somebody like Joe Biden or anybody really that's been in Congress for more than 10 years, there's a very low number of people that have been in Congress for more than 10 years that would ever vote into office if they were in my state, let alone for president. Let's finish this jackassery.
I have a great comfort level with the situation as I see it.
She
with
sees
all the
it.
Respect in the world for any woman who comes forward, with all the highest regard for Joe Biden. And that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
Cuckoo.
Double standard.
Double standard. Double standard.
That's right. I'm sorry, my my advanced sound equipment is really just my iPhone with this little app that I downloaded so I could do that. So kind of pitiful. But that, if you put in there Kavanaugh, and then you looked at Kavanaugh's career and his history and his family, it's as if she was talking about Kavanaugh, wasn't it? His whole, all these women that have worked for Kavanaugh, that he's made sure that they had a position, that women had a position in his office. And it's as if she's talking about him if you go research the guy. But she's not. She's talking about Dirty Joe Biden. Dirty Joe Biden. But listen, it is exactly what I was talking about yesterday. It's what I've railed on for years and years, is that these people live under a double standard, and they will lie straight to your face because they know, like I pointed out yesterday, that most likely nothing is going to happen. And I wanted to bring up this other soundbite by Maria Bartiromo, who I have to say, I mean, this is probably the greatest thing I've heard on Fox News and network television news in a long time. I mean, nobody really talks like this anymore, unless, like, if you watch me on OAN tonight, I was slamming McChrystal and others that are in the deep state, just like yesterday in the podcast, about talking about how I believe they could be charged with treason if anybody really wanted to charge them. If they wanted to bring a case, I think it's there. But listen to this interview with Maria Bartiromo. She slays Lindsey Graham, and there's a reason why. Because and I want to tell you so. I want you to think about this, okay? Lindsey Graham keeps talking about these, when there's criminal investigations going on against McCabe and Strzok and all these people, and it's always one individual. Like, there's an investigation going against Strzok, right? So they won't bring him in front of of Congress and subpoena them until, as Lindsey Graham, you'll hear him say, until the investigations are over, as though it's impossible to run their own investigation simultaneously with the bureaus, because they don't really interact. It's not like they're going to be tripping over each other to get Peter Strzok. There's 365 days in the year to get him or anybody else in front of Congress. I want you to think about this, because, like I told the story yesterday about how this guy who was a senior executive for DHS was ordered to set this policy in place and get this stuff going, and he just sat on it for 2 years because he didn't like it, and he waited until Bush was out of office. Another senior executive service member told me this. He waited till he gets him out, until he leaves office, and then they never enacted the policy. Just didn't do it. So I was talking yesterday about Barr, and I've said this over and over and over. Barr can say what he wants. He can hem and haw about certain things and have a headline every now and then. Durham as well. I don't know anything about Durham, but I can tell you that the fact that they're looking at individuals and not a conspiracy of people tells me that they really don't want to fully investigate this stuff. They don't want to do that. It's not what they're going for. They're not trying to stop this. They're not trying to fix this. It's no different than any other good old boy or good old girl network. These are politicians. These are pro people. I saw it in the Bureau. Executives do not bash executives, no matter what. They will promote them or promote them sideways or up, but they will never promote. They'll never push them down, and they'll never fire them. Very rarely. Same thing with the DOD. Rarely. Every once in a while I used to hear of a general getting demoted or fired. Usually they would just leave their base, and then they would quickly retire, full benefits, kind of like Green, Admiral Green, that was against Eddie Gallagher. But typically nothing really ever happens. And when you look at Barr, listen, don't stop making the mistake of thinking that Barr and political appointees and agency directors are different than politicians. They are not. It's just another political job. They're just not voted into office. They are appointed by other politicians. Why? Think about that. The rest of us we swear an oath to the Constitution. I swore it. I read it and I swore it. Do you see when Nancy Pelosi got sworn in as Speaker of the House? She didn't say the oath. And this is one thing I always disagree with when they when they have juries and they say, raise your right hand and repeat after me, or sometimes they just say it, whatever, and then they'll say the whole oath, and then you say, I do. I think if you're going to take an oath, you should be the one saying it. Nancy Pelosi did not say the oath. She just said, I do. To me, it's not really taking the oath. You have to say, I swear to defend, support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's an oath that you take, and you should say that. Repeat after me. Say it. But these people, they're not trying to fix the problems, because when it comes to political appointees, they're put into office by the politicians themselves. They're putting people and appointing people at the top so that they can make sure that what they want and what they don't want is going to be in effect. And if they get in trouble, they're going to be okay. Or if they're involved in something, they're going to be okay because their people are at the top. It's dirty. And when I look at and listen to this interview, which I'm going to play, where Maria Bartiromo, who I really like and respect, I've been on her show several times. I think she's a great person, great at her job. And I met her as a civilian at the U.S. Open when I was in the FBI. She was, she's a civilian, of course, but I was an FBI agent running special events, and I met her just for a brief moment. She didn't remember it, but I met her and said hello to her, and she was so overwhelmingly nice to myself and the other law enforcement individuals there, and genuine. She's just a good person. But, man, does she have some meat hooks when she comes at Lindsey Graham, because maybe she sees this, maybe she doesn't, but Lindsey Graham and the rest of these people, Barr and all these people, they can just sit on these cases. And if Trump doesn't win in this year, the election, or if he does win, they can still push this stuff on for 4 years. Cases go on for years. And then when he's gone, it's nothing. It'll just be pushed to the side. We've seen it already with the Clintons and the stuff that they've done. It just gets pushed to the side. And I think that's, when you listen to Lindsey Graham right here, I want what I just told you to resonate in your mind as you listen to this. Here you go. Hold on.
Joining me right now is Judiciary Committee Chairman Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us. We've been down this road many times in terms of that cabal and how they set everybody up to try to take down Donald Trump. We now know Peter Strzok was critical there. Will you call Peter Strzok to your committee to interview him as a witness, Senator?
Okay, so here you go. I want you to remember what I just told you.
Yeah, when the case is over, I'm not going to do anything to interfere in an ongoing criminal case. That'd be unethical. That'd be wrong. But when this case is over...
Why would that be unethical and wrong? You can do your own investigation. Maybe you hold off on your findings until this other stuff. But what does it matter? What happens if they did their own investigation and they find stuff that these people didn't have? Which I often wonder, why, for instance, the Senate or Congress is even looking at this stuff. That's not their job. I mean, people would say that is their job, oversight, but this is a criminal investigation. They should be writing the FBI to get this stuff done. Christopher Wray is another one of these. I don't know what the president was thinking when he put Christopher Wray in there. He could have reached down into the belly of the FBI and pulled. There's 10,000 people he could have pulled up that would have done a better and less political job than Christopher Wray. But it's unbelievable that the people that are up there. But this thing that Lindsey Graham's saying, look, if they want to investigate it and they uncover stuff that the FBI hasn't, well, that's great, because we can't trust the senior people in the FBI who are being investigated. You're not going to go grab a wolf that's been breaking into the chicken coop and have that wolf, if they could talk, testify against another wolf. They're not going to do it because they're a part of the same group.
I'm going to ask questions like, why did the field office recommend dropping the case and Peter Strzok and the 7th floor insisted that it go forward? Seems to me there's a tale of two FBIs here. The FBI...
No, there's not, Lindsey. There's corruption at the top of the FBI. There's not two FBIs. This was the whole entire thing was an attempt to overthrow our vote and the president, a duly elected president of the United States, so that they could put in another form of government. That's it.
That we all admire in the field office and this hit squad that McCabe and Comey put together operating out of the 7th floor. I want to know why Flynn was being surveilled by the Obama administration to begin with. The Obama administration is surveilling the national security advisor of the president-elect. What the hell was that all about? I want to know why they were looking at manufacturing a crime rather than investigating a crime. The field agents wanted to drop the case. It was the 7th floor at the FBI said, no, we got to go forward. It is now time to understand how the 7th floor operated. I will be all over that. Mr. President.
Yeah, just be quiet, Lindsey. I mean, this guy is, sometimes he's like Trump's best friend. Sometimes he comes out and he says these real tough things, especially after John McCain died. I don't know if you've realized that. John McCain died. All of a sudden, Lindsey Graham is balls to the wall, tough guy. But yet the rhetoric is all the same.
Don't give Flynn a pardon yet. Let the system work out. He deserves a new trial, and that case should be dismissed because of prosecutorial misconduct. That's the right answer here.
So do you think he'll be exonerated then?
I think the judge should, in light of this new evidence, dismiss the guilty plea and eventually dismiss the case. We now know in January the 4th, the FBI agents in Washington said there's no there. It was only after Strzok got involved at the direction of the 7th floor, the case continued. And this is a process crime. They set him up. I hope the guilty plea is set aside, and I hope the government will join in a motion to dismiss the case. Attorney General Barr is a real hero here.
Attorney General Barr is a hero for what? For what? Let's see what Lindsey Graham says he's a hero for.
Rule of law. So Attorney General Barr, if he joined in with the defense to dismiss the case, that would be the right outcome. Then I come in.
Then he comes in and does what? Well, let's see listen to what Maria Bartiromo says, and she'll answer that question.
I've got to tell you, though, I mean, we've been talking about this now for 3 years. And when I first came on the scene and said, look, this is a coup to take down Donald Trump, I got slammed. Everybody out there was just going on this, Russia collusion witch hunt, which was ridiculous. And you told me repeatedly over the last couple of years, as I continued to bring this evidence forth, in February of 2019, you said, I'm going to subpoena Rosenstein, Yates, Strzok, Comey. In July of 19, you said, I'm vowing to do a deep dive. In August 19, you said, we will make sure this never happens again. September 22nd, 2019, you came on this show, you said, we're ready to start calling people. October 29, I'm going to call Horowitz and subpoena. November 19, I'm going to call Horowitz after the findings. You are the only one with subpoena power right now in the Republican Party. We need you to call these individuals down to testify as witnesses. People want you to move on this, Senator. Are you going to?
She says, are you going to do it? Now, I want you to listen to what his response is. To me, it's chilling.
Do it.
Yeah, but I've told you, and I'll tell you again, I'm not going to interfere in an ongoing criminal matter. This is a rule of law nation. I'm a politician. My goal is to write a report of how I got off the rails, but I can promise you we're going to do it right. I'm not going to jump into the middle of this case, but when it's over, we're going to find out why the Mueller investigation lasted 2 years. We're going to find out what kind of FBI shop was run out of the 7th floor. We're going to find out how you could issue warrants against Carter Page when the Russian subsource told the FBI in January 2017 it's all a bunch of garbage. That's my lane.
Good.
Okay, he's not going to do any of that. He's not going to do any of it. I remember Jason Chaffetz, who I have no love for. I remember when he was sitting there railing against, I think it was Hillary Clinton or somebody, and he had this notebook and he was slamming it on the thing and saying, we're going to have a bunch of subpoenas for you and this and that. It might have been Mueller. And I remember sitting there thinking, and do what? What are you going to do? Have more people come up here and talk? Nothing that Lindsey Graham just said is going to happen. In fact, you can't even trust Barr and the DOJ. Again, that's the wolves investigating the wolves that broke into the hen house. You're not going to see these people actually try the case, the real case, the conspiracy of all these people to basically wage war, a subversive war on the country, you're not going to see it. You're not going to see a case like that. You're not even going to see a case of conspiracy where they look at all these people and how they functioned far out beyond politics. I was talking to somebody today, and that's an attorney, and they were talking about how back in the Lincoln days, how vicious the press was and how vicious even with George Washington politics was. Yes, it's been vicious. It's always been vicious because the people that are drawn to politics are two kinds of people. Typically, you have people who love and care about this country, and they are on fire with passion for it inside their heart. And then you have criminals. And you have people up there that are narcissists, compulsive liars, Joe Biden's, I guess you could say, Nancy Pelosi's, those types. Mitt Romney is another person that comes to mind. And all these people love Trey Gowdy. Well, Trey Gowdy never did a thing while he was in there. He just made himself look really good. And all these people end up going over to Fox News and do nothing there. So politics has always been nasty because it's basically people having to convince their voters that they should be back in there, even though the voters should just simply be able to say, okay, we voted you in 2 years ago or 6 years ago. What have you done since then? Well, show me what you've done. Literally. And they can't show you anything because they don't do anything. They do very little. So politics has always been bad. But what the difference is that what's happening now is not politics. This is war. It's a subversive war. And these people and what they've done, whether they tried them for conspiracy to overthrow the election or conspiracy to overthrow a duly elected president, or whether they went all the way out and said that these people are literally a cabal of people that are moving to change the form of government in the United States to socialism, and they are waging war on the United States. And Barr and the DOJ and Lindsey Graham and the Senate or the Congress or anybody else out there that's in Washington, D.C., they are not going to do anything about it. They will not try those cases. They will look at one person and they will try that person or that person over there, but they will not look at this as a conspiracy or a group of conspirators that are trying to overthrow election or the president. They're not going to try those cases. I hate to tell you. It's not going to happen. And it is a sad state of affairs for this country because I'm not real sure how we're going to get out of this. I'm not real sure. And it is worse than many of the incredible Americans that I know that are very professional people, many of them attorneys in media. And I talk to them and they don't see this. They don't see it. And I remember talking to I'd love to have Rick Unger on now. I remember talking to him 4 or 5 years ago about, maybe it was like 6 years. It was 6 years ago because I just got a picture on Facebook that showed Rick and I at David Webb's show. He used to have the show at 9 o'clock at night. Loved that show. Loved hosting it. And I remember talking to Rick afterwards, and we were having some tequila down at Del Frisco's. And I remember saying, this country is in bad shape. And he said, no, the country will make it through this. There's some hard times here and there, but the country will make it through. It's not as bad as you think. It is way worse than he thinks. And when I was talking to a friend of mine today who's an attorney and a very big attorney and is in media, and he said the same thing. And he thinks that if the people want to vote in socialism, then you can't stop it. I don't agree with that. I don't think you should be able or can change the form of government. It's okay to amend the Constitution to ensure that all people have the rights. You'd never change, and I don't think the way the government was set up, that you would be able to change the Constitution to fit a people's idea of how government should be. The only time you amend something in the Constitution is to ensure that all people have the same rights. That's basically it. You could modify, for instance, that we want to have term limits in office. That's a modification that doesn't change government. It just changes it limits the time that someone can spend in politics. I'm all for that, but that does not change the form of government. I believe that they could change the Constitution and write in there that mandatory service to the country, 2 years, not 1 year. Somebody said the other day on TV, 1 year, 2 years after high school, whether it be in military or in some other type of something that's the I wouldn't say the Peace Corps, but the AmeriCorps or something like that, where you're helping out around the country. I could see that. And I would support that. I know a lot of people are constitutionalists say, no, you can't do that because the founding fathers didn't want a conscripted military. But I think the difference there is that in order to have the special forces and all those things, that those people volunteer to be anything that has to do with combat service, that those people could be volunteering going to that. But having 2 years of service as a yeoman, that's like a secretary in the military, will change a person, even doing that. Because, and also here's the other thing that I believe in, is that you're born in this country free. It's not like you fought for freedom. Okay. There are people who fought for it way back when, and there's people who still defend it today. But people that are born in this country are just born into it. And it's the same thing with rich kids, that are born rich. You know how many rich kids I've locked up or I've known that committed suicide and all these, and because and that's one of the reasons why I've met Donald Trump Jr. I like him, and the president's family is a great family, but they would have to do a lot more before I would ever vote for them for an office. I don't pick people because of their pedigree. I pick them whether or not they're qualified for the job. Okay. And I think that just being an American citizen does not qualify you to get a lot of the things that you get in this country. I think that you should have to serve the country and learn and grow as a citizen. And I'm okay with that. But that's not changing the form of government. That's modifying our role as a citizen. There's a difference there. The Constitution, in my mind, and I know there may be scholars that disagree with this, but the Constitution, in my mind, is multifaceted. It lays out the form of government and the type of government that we have, a republic, that the states have rights and they're powerful. I think we're seeing signs of that now. And I believe in my heart that should not be messed with, and that the Bill of Rights should not be changed. The rights themselves should never be changed. I don't think that you should amend a right. I think that you can put amendments in the Bill of Rights and to make sure that all people have those rights, and that's what's been done. I think that we should add in there that any life form, a human life form that's conceived, has the right to live. I believe that should be in the Constitution. But the point I'm trying to make here, and the bottom line is that, as I said yesterday and saying today again, and after listening to these different people, we are in a crisis situation here because these are people that want to overthrow the government. Now, let's take a break real quick. I'm going to come back just for a few minutes to close with some articles that I've been reading. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. Make sure you go check out my books, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and its workbooks. Right now is the perfect time. You're home. Most people are at home. Even if you're an essential worker, this is something you want to read, because as things change in this country, you're going to want to be aware of how attackers think and how they look at you. And that's what this book teaches you, how to look at yourself from the attacker's point of view. And for your children, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. And why is it called that? Because it gives the parent a tool. That's the pictures in this book with all these different lessons of safety and awareness put in there. That's the tool. You give that to the children, and then the parent goes to the website teamlittlebigs.com and downloads the lesson plans or just looks at them as the child goes through the pictures. And what does that do? It creates that system of communication with you and your child, and safety and awareness and the ability to communicate with each other, even young children. Let's get back to the show. Okay. Trying to do those commercials, let everybody know about this. Listen, I'm not just trying to push books. These are techniques and the ability for you to grow in your safety and awareness in your home, even with your young children. So go check those out. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, its workbooks, and The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. Now, I pulled up some articles here, and I went and scoured the different websites. Drudge had a bunch of good ones today. One, this big one is, we talked about McChrystal yesterday, General McChrystal, who's a total leftist and I believe committing treason. Okay. And so it's going right along with 2016 when the election was happening, how they're starting to spin this stuff up. I'm already starting to see trolls like I hadn't really seen before on social media when I say certain things. But this whistleblower, okay, interesting how this is happening again. A whistleblower complaint from a doctor formerly leading U.S. coronavirus vaccine effort alleges HHS operated on cronyism. Now, here's the thing. Rick Bright is not just a new doctor in the government, right? He is someone that, where did I put this at? He is, oh yes, it's right here. I pulled up, somebody wrote a Wikipedia page for him already. His career, Bright spent a decade in vaccine and therapeutic development at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So he's been in and around this stuff for a long, long time. He went into the biotech industry, and then he joined the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, BARDA, in 2010, serving as a director of the Influenza and Emerging Infectious Diseases Division in the Influenza Division internal program, right? So here's the thing. In 2016, he succeeded the founding director, Robin Robinson, as a director of BARDA. So he didn't just come along when the coronavirus did, and he didn't like the way he was being treated and see this stuff. He didn't say it was cronyism until Trump was in office. Okay, this guy's been around for well over a decade, and he is somebody that is responsible as a senior person and a doctor in this position that he was in for us not being prepared. And so he wants to go and complain now because he was shunned, because hydroxychloroquine, he felt as though the FDA needed to prove that first for use with the coronavirus, even though it is a dangerous drug if it's taken wrong. But if you take it the way a doctor prescribes it for malaria, it's pretty much the same way we're taking it now. I took it. I had it. And it's hard to determine whether or not the combination of the Z-Pack and that actually did anything, because I don't know what it would have been like if I hadn't taken it. But I do know of the 4 people that were infected that I'm associated with, the only person that didn't take it ended up getting much sicker. I know that for a fact. So 3 out of the 4 people that got infected was very, very sick with double pneumonia. The rest of us didn't get that. And that takes out of the factor the individual we got infected from who passed away. But when you look at this guy and you look at his complaint, he didn't want he didn't like what Trump was doing, but and what these other individuals from Health Human Services, how they were formulating their opinion on hydroxychloroquine. But you know what? He's one of a team of people or a group of people, and he disagreed. And I mean, if you're going to go out because you got canned and do a whistleblower complaint because of that, it just sounds like the guy's real pissy. And when I look at his picture, look at it, you will want to punch the air when you look at this guy's picture. I thought that was very important to bring that up. The other thing is that they call them antitrust hawks. We're talking about Elizabeth Warren, AOC, several other people. They're going after, which I think is funny, Facebook, Google, and Amazon. Amazon is the king of doing, well, they're all really bad about doing shady stuff. But Amazon used data that they collected on its third-party sellers to manufacture competing products bearing the Amazon brand. That's shady. See, Amazon isn't just about being a logistics corporation. They're also about creating stuff and then taking that from the mom and pop. So, Walmart used to get criticized for that, but Amazon does it. So it's interesting how the left is now investigating the left. I'm sure it's so that they can get votes. That's the way these people are. Let's see here. What was the other one? Okay, this is what I'm going to end with, okay? Layoffs at Airbnb cast a dark shadow over Silicon Valley. This is a story that I was reading. It's very interesting because technology, Disney, many of the airlines, they can't even survive a month. Even Apple took a $8 billion loan from somewhere. This is shocking for me because I'm not a big business guy, but, we look at people that live in Manhattan, for instance. I moved out of Manhattan because one of the reasons was that I do speeches. By the way, if anybody wants me to speak, let me know. You can hit me up at jonathantgilliam.com. You don't have to go to the website because the website's down right now. Just email me, jonathan@jonathantgilliam.com, or you can DM me on any of my social media. And if you need a speaker, let me know. But I saw that what was happening here, there weren't going to be a lot of speeches, that I'm not doing a lot of book sales because Amazon stopped the books. So I knew what was happening, and I could see that it wasn't going to get any better in Manhattan. I didn't want to be locked down. I didn't want to be having to pay $23, $25 a month. I've been there 15 years, so $2,325 a month in a place that I was going to have to sit or probably leave and not be there anyway. So I decided to leave and get out of there. But there are a lot of people that live there that live paycheck to paycheck. There's a lot of people around the world or around the country that live paycheck to paycheck. But I'm surprised by these Silicon Valley billionaires and millionaires and people in the airline industry who are still going to get paid, I'm sure, but whether they fold or not, how they are having such a difficult time. I mean, Disney lost a tremendous amount. They went down. And you would think they would be flourishing right now. I mean, they just opened up their own or started their own like a Netflix type thing, the Disney network. You would think that they'd be flourishing from this, but they don't think outside the box. It reminds me years ago, I invented a holster, which I wore as an air marshal, and it's an undercover holster. It's a system of belts and holsters that you can move around and underneath your shirts. I still need to try to get back up on that someday, but set that to the side. But I spent a lot of money in researching and buying materials and stuff. And, I learned as a young entrepreneur after the air marshals that you can have great ideas. This is before I went in the FBI. You can have great ideas. And I learned this again after I got out of the FBI. You can have great ideas, but it doesn't mean they're going to sell. Or you could have ideas that are great, but nobody's going to buy it. And it's a product that will never come to fruition. And then other times you'll have something that's just a side idea that really does well. But I learned back then, I was going to all these different companies that made stuff out of the materials that I used, backpacks, for instance, or jeans. And I went down to North Carolina and was talking to a lot of these different companies, and they just wouldn't diversify. I said, can we do a deal where I pay you a certain amount and you manufacture these? And they're like, no, we're going to stick with what we do. And most of those companies are out of business now because it was the economy during the Obama administration was very hard on a lot of those places down there in the textile industry and in and around North and South Carolina. And they just would not diversify, and so they're gone. They're just literally gone. And it's interesting when I look at the Silicon Valley companies, the airline industry, media, how they are hurting right now because it's as if they live paycheck to paycheck. They're so big that they can't even afford to function for a month when things go bad. Interesting. Very, very interesting, but not surprising. And the reason that's not surprising is because most of those places are ran. A lot of them are ran by people that are out of touch. Just like Washington, D.C., they're too big. Companies can get too big. Look at Walmart as compared to Amazon. How did Walmart not figure out that that was the way to go? And when Amazon came along, Walmart did not compete properly, and they took a hit. I think it's because they were too big. Technology changed, and Walmart didn't follow along with it. They were too big in their own minds. And that's the way we should all really think and realize. I'm not saying I'm glad this stuff happened, but I am glad that you don't get everything that you want immediately right now. You're not. We may not even have meat over the next month, but you want something, you may not get it immediately. It's actually good for us. That part of it's good for us. And you know what else is good? The fact that your freedoms have been restricted a little bit. I'm actually happy that happened because it woke a lot of people up to what's happening. And that, folks, is the truth. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.
Double standard.
And that was the word of the day. Peace.